All right. This is wonderful. I've never had a crowd quiet down before I started talking. Thank you so much. Hi, my name is Chris McCauley, and I'm the Executive Director of the Art Museum of Greater Lafayette. We are hosting this program, and we are so grateful for your attendance here today. We have a lot of wonderful partnerships to make this program possible, starting with the DAI, and you will hear from them. You can get their information in the back. They are bringing all of the wonderful information to this event. So we are simply hosting while they are bringing the actual knowledge behind it. We are also partnering with the Black Cultural Center, with BIC, with Good Samaritan Project, and if I forgot anyone, if you have something, Jodic Productions, we're partnering with as well. And then one really big thing I want to call out is our venue. If we could give a big round of applause for Don. So there was a time where we do opening receptions, we do Friday Night Lives, and we have a serving license where we can give away or sell things at our receptions. And we almost missed our opportunity one week. And we called up Don, and he came, and I was in a meeting. He just came down to the museum. He waited through the meeting. We talked. We didn't actually need their services, but we just knew how much they cared about community for him to do that. And we were determined to do more events here at the Rat Pack, get outside of our walls for some things that we can, and especially when we have a crowd like this, and to reflect that community. So thank you, Don. So today you're going to hear from multiple doctors, you're going to hear from Good Samaritans, you're going to hear from revolutionaries, you're going to hear from people who have driven from Georgia to be here to present for you today. You're going to hear choirs sing, and just an amazing, amazing program, and that is something we are so grateful for here today. So I'm not going to talk too long. I just wanted to welcome you, to thank you, and to say that the Art Museum is open from 11 to 4 every day. We are going to have a reception after this. We have catering from Shanice's Kitchen and some NA beverages. That will start at 3:30 after this. So please come back to the Art Museum. It's located just across town on 10th Street. And get some food and see kind of the inspiration for this, which is a quilt made by a local artist, Gloria Klutsky, and it has all of the different kind of routes that people took, and not necessarily by choice. So it shows the Native American Trail of Death, it shows the Underground Railroad, it shows some other patterns. All of those roads go through Lafayette, and I believe it is the only town on that and on the quilt and in Indiana where all of those roads kind of converge, which is really interesting and a really big piece of the history of this community and of Indiana. So we are really grateful that that is in our museum and that we are able to bring this presentation as part of that offering and as part of the things that we have in our gallery space. We have free programming. We'll have a Friday Night Live on May 23rd. We'll also have an opening reception that day, so from 6 to 7, you can come and see our gallery space, free wine, free hors d'oeuvres, sponsored by our Art League, which is a wonderful volunteer group within our museum. And then afterward, there's a free concert. We do lots of things like that. We do exploring our collection, all sorts of wonderful programming. If you go to artlafayette.org, you can find out about all of our things. The last thing that I want to talk about is just our educational mission. We have classes, we have all sorts of things that you can find in ways that you can support the museum. And if you become a member of the Art Museum, that is also a way that you support our mission and enable us to do wonderful programs like this. So I believe next up is Dr. Deco, and so I'm going to welcome him to the stage. Dr. Deco.
got to wade in the water, 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 wade in the water. God's gonna trouble the water. Bound for freedom, got to lose those children all dressed in red. God's gonna trouble the water. Must be the one that Moses led. God's gonna trouble the water. Wade in the water, 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 wade in the water. God's gonna trouble the water. Bound for freedom, got to lose those children all dressed in white. God's gonna trouble the water. Must be a man to Israelites. God's gonna trouble the water. Wade in the water, 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 wade in the water. God's gonna trouble the water. Bound for freedom, got to lose those children all dressed in blue. God's gonna trouble the water. Us being those children who made it through. God's gonna trouble the water. Wade in the water, 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 wade in the water. God's gonna trouble the water.
I'm going to just lean into this. Thank you so much. Let's give them another round of applause. So next in our program, we are going to talk about the General and Elizabeth Tootle grave markers at Greenbush Cemetery. And I know that Paula Davis in the back is going to lead this talk with our Good Samaritan Project, and she does so much to improve this community and help it. We all welcome Paula Davis.
Well, thank you kindly. Wow. Thank you kindly. I appreciate that, Chris. Well, my name is Lizzie Tootle, and that's my husband, General Tootle. General, come on up here so they can meet you. I'm sure they've heard a lot about you. General, I don't want to embarrass him. He's a mighty fine man, and we're going to be talking a little bit about him today. But General, you want to say something to the people?
How are you folks doing today? I'm glad to be here. I figured I'd come back one more time just to make sure they get it on right. Thank you and enjoy.
He's a man of few words, and he's being modest. But really, the reason why we're here today, part of it, is to raise money to make sure that my husband, the good man, the man that loved this community, the man that served his country, that he gets a proper headstone. You see, he served his country in the Civil War, and he did the best he could. But like so many men of color, he didn't actually get the tombstone that would be indicative of his military service. So today we're looking to raise money to make that happen. So far we've had 1,600, but we've come up with 500 thanks to our generous friends at Lafayette Daybreak Rotary. But we need that other 1,100 to make sure that he is properly recognized and to correct those things that was done wrongly. So we so appreciate you tonight. Thank you.
And if you do not know the story of General Tootle, you definitely should. Paula will inform you, and I'm sure you'll hear much, much more today about that. And thank you, Paula. Thank you as well to the Underground Railroad Choir, which when I announced them, I did not give the full recognition there. Next up, we have our presentation of Lafayette's Underground Railroad, an interracial coalition, and we welcome Diana Weiss.
I would like to thank Olivia and Chris for inviting me here today. It's an honor to talk about this subject that I'm very passionate about. So, my notes here. So this presentation is only a small sample about the rich history of the local Underground Railroad, a network of secret routes and safe houses that helped enslaved African Americans escape to free states prior to the Civil War. I'd like to start by saying that I am by no means an expert. I have always been curious about this subject, so relying on the research of the late Mary Anthrop and my friend Paula Davis, I went on a quest to find additional information about General Tootle and the local African American contributions to the local Underground Railroad. During this presentation, you will see artwork by local artist Sandra Whidden to help with today's narrative. And before you leave, make sure you see the originals back here. There's more than what you'll see here, and she's a lovely artist, and she did a tremendous job capturing the African American community of that time. So in celebration of Lafayette 200 and America 250, a few pieces of her artwork will be available on display here as well as in the program. So historian and scholar Henry Louis Gates Jr. has researched and written much about the Underground Railroad, and he dispelled the myth that it was an operation run solely by white abolitionists. He noted that the Underground Railroad and the abolition movement itself were perhaps the first instances in American history of a genuine interracial coalition, which is the underlying theme for today. Such a coalition was prevalent in our area. Most of us have heard about prominent white citizens who were part of this network, but we haven't heard a lot about their African American counterparts that included men and women, most notably General Tootle and Sarah Beadle. While records are scarce due to the secret nature of the operation, I hope to make a case that African Americans worked in leadership positions alongside their white friends and neighbors to direct freedom seekers to safety. So the Beadles were a large African American family who lived near the railroad junction in Towpath in what is now known as the Wabash Avenue neighborhood. We don't know a lot about their involvement in the Underground Railroad, but Mary Anthrop found evidence that Mrs. Sarah Beadle prepared food baskets and collected money for weary freedom-seeking travelers who passed her way. It's likely that she was more than just an ordinary Good Samaritan who happened to live near the railroad junction in Wabash River. The Tootle family was part of a migration of free Black people from North Carolina to Carthage, Indiana, where the historic Beach Colony was formed. The Beach Colony was an African American farming community formed on the Indiana frontier in the 1830s. The location was chosen by this group due to the close proximity of many of their Quaker friends who had also migrated, or should I say fled, from North Carolina. This would not have been possible had it been after the 1851 Indiana Constitution was enacted. Embedded in that Constitution was a racist clause calling for the exclusion of Negroes and mulattoes from this state. And I'm sad to report that Tippecanoe County voters supported this measure by a nearly 60% majority. General Tootle had been a citizen here for a mere 6 years in 1851. Born in 1826, General Tootle was one of 5 sons born to a senior General Tootle and his wife Mary in Halifax, North Carolina. His brother Aaron reported to have witnessed their father being sold at a slave auction in North Carolina, where slavery was a thriving business. Quakers in the community held a practice of purchasing slaves at auctions for the purpose of setting them free, which is likely how the Tootle family escaped from bondage. Free black men and women lived in fear as unscrupulous slave catchers would sometimes recapture free black citizens and sell them back into slavery. Unjust laws which prohibited black citizens from learning to read or even worship without white supervision were enacted, which made it unbearable for Quakers and black citizens to live in North Carolina. The oppressed citizens knew that if they were to succeed in a free society, they must have an education. In 1829, a large group of free black families from North Carolina and Virginia traveled in a caravan of 15 wagons and carts filled with men, women, and children. They trudged through the mountains of West Virginia, floated across the Ohio River at Cincinnati, and continued with their arduous journey until they reached Carthage, Indiana. Among the weary travelers were members of the Tootle family, led by the senior General Tootle. They had traveled with 5 boys in a 2-wheeled cart to their destination. The Tootles purchased 40 acres of land from the federal government and began farming within the beach colony, which is listed on the National Historic Register. They chose that name because the land included a large grove of beech trees. As the children grew, many of them left Carthage to seek better opportunities. The younger General Tootle and his brother Aaron came to Lafayette in 1844 and opened a barber shop. Aaron eventually moved to Vincennes, where he became a business owner, politician, and community leader. General Tootle became a prominent citizen in Lafayette and counted among his friends leaders like Judge Cyrus and Rebecca Ball, Sheriff Martin Pierce, and William Foster, the superintendent of the New Albany and Salem Railroad, which is now the Monon. And this was a literal railroad, not the underground network. Tootle nearly lost his freedom during a narrow escape on July 4th, 1860, when he was arrested in Crawfordsville, Indiana by a slave catcher. The Lafayette Daily Courier wrote about the harrowing ordeal. General Tootle, a well-known colored barber of this city and general freight agent on the Underground Railroad, was arrested in Crawfordsville yesterday on suspicion of being a fugitive slave. It went on to give more details, including how the slave catcher provided a handbill offering $300 for the capture of a runaway slave named Jacob. The flyer described in detail a personal description, including clothing that matched the appearance of General Tootle. It was quite the scene. The report said that Tootle was equal to the occasion and armed with a Bowie knife and revolver. He gave Mr. Slave Catcher to understand that free black men and women in Indiana had some rights in which white men might find it prudent to respect. So I just wonder, General Tootle, you don't have that Bowie knife with you today, do you? I told you to keep that at home. So.
Maybe I do, maybe I don't.
So William Foster was a neighbor and friend to General Tootle in downtown Lafayette. They worked together to forward passengers from Crawfordsville through Lafayette and then northward to Detroit and then to Canada. General Tootle would accompany passengers to the train station and beyond, while Foster, the train superintendent, instructed his conductor not to question black passengers about their business. General Tootle didn't shy away from conflict after the Civil War broke out, and when Congress finally allowed for the enlistment of African American men in the Union Army in July of 1862, he enlisted as part of the 15th Colored Indiana Infantry. The Bethel AME Church, originally located at 10th and Cincinnati Streets, was used as a recruitment center for members of the local African American community. According to a pension claim deposition for Isaac Wheeler in 1889, Tootle wrote, "I was in service as a messenger for General Wagner, Colonel of the 15th Indiana. General Wagner led his troops in the infamous Battle of Franklin on November 30th, 1864, in Franklin, Tennessee, and it was one of the worst disasters for the Confederate Army." General Tootle's reputation as an effective community leader brought him much respect in the community. He was elected as leader for local militias and was chosen to serve as the Grand Marshal for Lafayette's first Emancipation Day Parade, which was celebrated every year on September 22nd after President Lincoln issued the preliminary Emancipation Proclamation during the midst of the Civil War. The African American community celebrated this day every year for decades. During his career as a barber, he set up shop in various locations throughout the downtown area, including across from the courthouse on Columbia Street, in the basement of the Bramble House on Main Street, and in the basement of the Reynolds Union National Bank. Tootle, referred to as the Kingpin of Barbers, once initiated a barber strike in reaction to a rent increase, causing him to raise prices. In 1869, Tootle pled guilty to indulging in the pleasures of tonsorial art on the Sabbath and was fined $1 and costs. So it pays to have a friend in the judge's seat. But Tootle was often in the news for one thing or another during his lifetime and was referred to as a character more than once. The death of General Tootle's wife, the former Elizabeth Cook, in 1879, at the age of 47, was a huge blow to him. They had been married for 30 years. She was born in 1831 in Washington, D.C., and came to Lafayette as a child to be raised in the home of Judge Andrew and Emily Ingram. Judge Ingram was a prominent citizen who was actively involved in his church, St. John's Episcopal, where many of the local Underground Railroad activists worshipped. She and Tootle were married in the Ingram home in 1849, and when she died, the Ingram family gifted 2 grave sites from the family plot to the Tootle. A year after Elizabeth's death, General Tootle applied for a position as a sleeping car conductor for the railroad. The April 28, 1880 edition of the Journal and Courier noted this event with a nice write-up. It mentioned that he served with distinction as a conductor on the Underground Railroad. Tootle also wore a reverend's robe and served as the pastor of the Bethel AME Church. There was a detailed story written up in the newspaper that he once gave such a fiery sermon that the pot-bellied stove fell over and nearly caused fire. General Tootle's last days were sad ones. Due to deteriorating health, he was taken to the county poor farm in 1891. A year later, he passed away. Trustee Sims solicited donations to pay for a suitable casket and to bury the remains by the side of his wife in the Greenbush Cemetery. Enough money was collected to purchase an elegant casket and provide for an honorable burial. The Lafayette Leader published a nice write-up on Tootle, referring to him as one of the best-known black men in Lafayette. It was reported that he was buried with all the honors of a veteran, which would have included a veteran-led 21-gun salute, the playing of taps on a bugle, and an American flag draped over the coffin. Tootle was buried in an unmarked grave, and as Mrs. Tootle said, we are working to rectify this because we believe this hero deserves to be buried properly in a marked grave. Judge Cyrus and Rebecca Gordon Ball were also Underground Railroad history makers who likely worked alongside Tootle. They served as station masters, which meant that they hosted freedom seekers in their home. In a 1916 newspaper interview, their son, Cyrus Gordon, described childhood memories of those activities. There was a little back kitchen to this house, and there these runaway slaves would be placed. I remember one very fine-looking Negro man that was there through the day. In the evening, I saw Father go out, and the man crept out after him, maybe 50 feet behind him. They walked north on 6th Street and disappeared in the darkness. The Negro was gone in the morning. The Balls also entertained William Lloyd Garrison, another famous abolitionist, in their homes at a time when it was dangerous to do so. Garrison wrote a letter dated November 27, 1865, to his wife about one of those visits, which was published in Volume 5 of the Letters of William Lloyd Garrison, Let the Oppressed Go Free. He described Rebecca as a very pleasant and social lady. Mr. Garrison signed the Ball family guest book, which continues to be in the possession of the Ball family. Rebecca became known for her fiery poems, stories, and letters as she fervently spoke out against the evils of slavery. She amplified Black voices and demanded emancipation for enslaved people. It is likely that her strong abolitionist views were encouraged by her sister, Rosanna Gordon Thompson, a Philadelphia native and active member of the Anti-Slavery Society. Rosanna's husband, Lewis Thompson, a nationally known printer and publisher of anti-slavery sentiment, witnessed one of the most dramatic of all fugitive slave escapes when Henry Box Brown shipped himself in a 3-by-2-foot crate from Richmond, Virginia to Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. I think it's safe to say that Lafayette's unique interracial Underground Railroad coalition is one that we can all look to as a model for what can be accomplished by working together toward equality and freedom for all. General Tootle was arrested for engaging in this dangerous work and nearly lost his freedom. He could have walked away from it all, but he was committed to helping his fellow man. Rebecca Ball was harshly criticized for her views and risked being fined and jailed for harboring fugitives. She could have walked away from it all. Rather, she unified the local freedom coalition with her controversial writings and poems. Her words can serve to unite us today, so I will leave you with the stirring call to action from Rebecca's heart and pen. We'll but think on the brave deeds our fathers have done, and will not yield the struggle till victory's won. Thank you.
Let's give another round of applause for them. So if you are from this community, you might have run across Audrey Johnson and her wonderful program of the I Sing, which she goes through a lot of different historical and societal issues in some of her different programs. So we had the honor of having her at the museum for one of our Friday Night Lives. And she is also back here today to perform today. So please welcome Audrey Johnson.
Chris, it's an honor to be back collaborating with you and an honor to be with you all today. And Diana's beautiful work is just fantastic, and I would like to share more of Rebecca Ball's poetry with you all now in the form of 2 song settings that use historical music to bring Rebecca's poems to life within the soundscape of her time. And no other Civil War era composer captures this historical time with as much significance as George Frederick Root. The Assistant Secretary of War during the Civil War time once said that Root did more to preserve the Union than a great many brigadier generals, and quite as much as some brigades. Now, Root's name may not be very familiar to us now, but in the 1860s, Root was nationally known as a songwriter. And this success was largely due to his other occupation as a traveling music teacher, which gave him first-hand knowledge of the American people and the kind of music that most deeply resonated with them. When the war started, Root's experiences had given him exactly the background he needed to reflect the sentiments of the people through music. In his words, whenever anything happened that could be voiced in a song, or when the heart of the nation was moved by particular circumstances or conditions caused by the war, I wrote what I thought would then express the emotions of the soldiers or the people. But Root didn't just express these emotions of the people of his time. His evocative music helped to shape these emotions as well, making him a crucial asset to the Union Army. Public enthusiasm for supporting the Union Army had been strong in the beginning, with many expecting a quick and easy victory. However, a series of Union defeats soon showed that Confederate forces had been underestimated. By the summer of 1862, the Union Army needed more men to bolster their numbers, and President Abraham Lincoln called for 300,000 more troops to join the ranks. Root recounted that when he heard of President Lincoln's call, a song started in his mind immediately, which he wrote music and words together over the course of a single day. That song was the battle cry of freedom. And almost immediately, the song spread to every corner of the nation and was heard from the town hall to the battlefield. Root referenced the latter situation in the lyrics of a subsequent song when he heard that some regiments had begun singing the song as they ran into battle. And you can see here the line of the poem and the text there that is what he has found. When going into action by order of a commanding officer, they sing the battle cry of freedom. And that song that was referenced here just before the battle, Mother, serves as the musical material for the first Rebecca Ball song setting I will share with you today, and the imagery in the original song of a soldier longing for the comforts of home provides a fitting scene for Rebecca's words, as she risked reputation and personal safety to care for wounded soldiers from the opposite side, right here in our own backyard. In February of 1862, Union forces successfully captured Fort Donelson in Tennessee, leaving the Union Army with about 15,000 prisoners of war, 5,500 of which were sent to Indiana. Indiana was ill-prepared to take on such a large number of prisoners, and Governor Oliver Morton had to act quickly. Indianapolis took 3,800 of the men, and while work began to expand those accommodations in the capital, Terre Haute and Lafayette took roughly 800 prisoners each. Lafayette housed these prisoners of war from February 23rd to March 16th of that year. Most were housed in the Henry T. Sample pork packing warehouse, which for that time became known as Sample Barracks, with some overflow into Camp Tippecanoe. A temporary hospital was set up in Walsh's Hall on South Street, as many of the men were severely ill from exposure and fever. The citizens of Lafayette treated these prisoners with overwhelming kindness and compassion, providing food, blankets, and supplies. A group of roughly 50 women cared for the sick and wounded prisoners. And when 33 of the prisoners died, the residents of Lafayette buried them with dignity in the Greenbush Cemetery. With these compassionate acts in mind, it may be hard to imagine that the women caring for the prisoners would fall under attack within the community. But this direct contact with the prisoners was sometimes rumored to indicate rebel sympathies. These accusations went as far as a grand jury being called, with some of the women summoned to give testimony. Though no legal charges resulted, this situation shows that much more than personal reputation was at stake, even for noted abolitionists like Rebecca Gordon Ball, whose strong sense of Christian duty led her to join the ranks of these angels of mercy, caring for the prisoners. It was from this perspective that Rebecca Ball wrote her poem, The Rebel Hospital, which shares firsthand experience of her nursing these rebel soldiers, many of whom were very young. Some would never see home again and would often cry out for their mothers in their final hours. As Rebecca Ball was herself a mother who had a son serving in the war, one can only imagine that she treated these rebel prisoners with the same care she would hope some Confederate mother would treat her own son. Of treason for volunteering at the rebel hospital. She also risked her personal safety by her work as an abolitionist, as Diana Weiss has described. Rebecca Ball's abolitionist actions began before the Civil War started. In 1854, the Kansas-Nebraska Act created official boundaries of these territories and allowed for legal settlements on the lands. But the act also allowed the residents to decide by popular vote whether these territories would enter the Union as free or slave states. This caused a rapid influx of both pro- and anti-slave settlers wanting to sway the vote in their favor. This situation was the perfect storm for conflict and violence, which continued as the period known as Bleeding Kansas until 1861, when Kansas entered the Union as a free state. Shame and heartbreak over this eruption of violence in Kansas was felt nationwide. It was seen as a stain on America's honor and was one of the major factors that led to the Civil War. George Root's song, "The Vacant Chair," memorializes a Union soldier who fell while defending American honor, and the song therefore seemed to me a very fitting one to use in setting Rebecca Ball's poem, Liberty. At the time that Rebecca Ball wrote the poem, the violence of Bleeding Kansas had resulted in profound and shameful bloodshed. In Liberty, Rebecca Ball memorializes American soldiers of the past whose sacrifice started the nation's path towards freedom. And she urges her fellow citizens to build on that legacy in an abolitionist's call to action.
Freedom shall fall on task is done, and with a shout of glad triumph, our victory's won.
You'd think I'd be closer to the front for these. Next up, we have a wonderful volunteer for the Art Museum, also a member of the DAR, and she does so much for this community, and we are so grateful for her presentation, The Mechanics of Quilting. Please welcome Linda Sorensen.
Thank you, Chris. Need my hands free. Let's see if we can get this to work. We've come together today to learn more about the Underground Railroad, and we've seen reference to how quilts were involved in aiding persons trying to escape slavery. Before we examine that relationship, I would like to share a few words with you regarding quilts. Just what are they? It's my guess that all of you have a vision or a memory of a quilt of some kind. I know when I was a little girl, I slept under a couple quilts. And there were stories from my mother about this fabric was somebody's, and this was somebody else's, and this was somebody else's. But those quilts, to her, were called covers. Heard that term? They were covers. And that's what they did. They kept me warm. They protected me, and later we're going to see how they've protected other people. So what is a quilt? Well, it starts with a quilt block in most cases, not always, but often a quilt block. A piece of fabric, lots of pieces of fabrics stitched together. Those are put together in various ways. They could be laid out this way, or there could be a plain block in between them. And all together, they become what's called the front, or the front of the quilt. So if you could imagine that this is a quilt, the quilt top, all put together. Maybe it's for a doll's bed, which was often done. Next to it would be placed a piece of batting or padding. We call them batting now. And finally, one more piece of fabric. And usually this is just one piece. Sometimes it has to be pieced into several pieces because the quilt's too big or because people didn't have enough of one kind of fabric and used another kind too. But this is the back, the backing. So basically, this is what is a quilt. It's always 3 layers, and they're held together in various ways. They might be held together by hand quilting, and the examples here on the stage, you can see from where you're sitting, I think, have been put together by hand quilting. Needle and thread, up and down and up and down. Other times, they may be put together with machine stitching. And in some cases, and this is the quick and easy method, they are tied together with yarn or with thread. So when you're really in a hurry, that's the way to go. We've all done that, those of you in the audience who are quilters. But you know, quilting is not new. Quilting began in prehistoric times when human hunting their clothing, and they started growing it. To keep warm, they layered fabrics together, stuffed them with wool, silk, or cotton, and later they even hung them over the windows to keep the cold drafts from coming in. It was introduced to the American colonies by the English and the Dutch. However, before cloth could be made, used to make quilted petticoats, and that was common, or bed coverings, the fabric had to be imported or saved from clothing. And the embargo until the Revolutionary War made fabric very, very expensive. After the Revolutionary War, many English settlers moved westward, and they had to depend on their own skills to grow, to weave, dye, spin, make their fabrics. But in 1793, the cotton gin was introduced, and that made it much easier for our residents to find fabric that was made in this country. Now the ladies could begin planning formal quilts, and quilts could be made from new fabrics. In 1850, the sewing machine was invented, and this allowed for much more elaborate piecing of fabrics together for appliquing and quilting, even on this wonderful invention. Quilting also became a means for communicating and for social gatherings. Ladies used to meet together and they have a huge frame and they would have quilting bees. And they didn't only quilt, they shared ideas, gossip, and assistance to one another. During the Civil War, when fabric was in short supply, the women did make quilts, and they sent them with their men to keep them warm. They were made from feed and fertilizer sacks, old uniforms, twill, flannel, pant legs even used to make the fabrics. They were quickly stitched together and really not known much for their beauty at that time. Now, in the late 19th and 20th centuries, we joined the Industrial Revolution and we had mass production. So the need for handmade quilts was no longer that evident. People could buy a blanket or a cover. And so quilting became less popular. But it has begun, I don't know if it's an art, it's a hobby, it's, a lot of you are quilters, what would you call it? An addiction, has really begun to soar again. There's great interest in it. But it's not now for necessity. Now it's popular for art and for cultural heritage. And I'm going to show you some examples of some of that in just a minute. And you're going to see that people not only make big quilts that cover the bed now, but they make wall hangings. And of course, the one over to your right is a wall hanging. And when you go to the art museum later today, you're going to see some beautiful wall hangings on display. And sometimes that's referred to as fiber art, but you'll see some lovely things. And just last night, TAF also opened an exhibit on quilts. And I see at least one person in the audience who has a quilt in that display. And there are some beautiful examples there as well. So you'll want to take both of those in. And of course, you know it's a modern thing to quilt. And you've all heard of Vera Bradley, right? How many pieces do we have? Yes. And of course, when that's made, again, it's 3 layers. But they're all put together by machine, sold by the yard, and then they're cut to make the pieces. A lot different from the original ones. Now, let's look at a few examples, and I have a couple helpers here to help me. Linda Pritchard and Tammy Mitchell, and they're going to hold up some things and as I describe them. The first is the top of a quilt, and that first layer that has been pieced together by Linda. And you'll see the fabrics are cut in various shapes and stitched together. And this is one pattern. There are thousands of patterns for quilts and many variations. The designs are usually geometric and can be very colorful or can be subdued depending on what the artist chooses. The designs are often made into blocks and the blocks stitched together, just as we saw originally. The patterns all have names, such as log cabin, you've heard of that one, flying geese, which you may hear about later, a 9 patch, and this yellow one in the center is a double wedding ring. The titles go on and on. Thank you. The next thing we're going to look at, and while they're getting their quilt ready, I'm going to tell you about applique. This is a term, I said that quilts usually are cut into squares and made into blocks, and then the blocks go together. Not necessarily so. What you might want to do is applique one fabric onto another. And in doing so, can create some very dramatic designs, very colorful designs. This one of an iris. This one of a Native American. This one uses applique, and you're also going to see a great deal of machine stitching, adding to the colors. Okay, so we've got two ways to make that top. Now we've got blocks that are pieced together, and we've got applique, and the third is embroidery. And Tammy and Linda are holding one up that is hand embroidered. It could be done by machine. This one is hand embroidered, and it was made in the 30s and includes an embroidered flower, the state flower for each of the states. You can tell it's from the 30s by the colors, can't you? The green is a deaf giveaway for that. Early quilting was often done by hand, but not so anymore. The quilting may be done by machine. It may be done on a big, long arm machine. Many people take their tops and the 3 layers to somebody else, and somebody else does the quilting, often on the machine. Then what we're going to look at now are some different kinds of quilts, and I know you've seen many of these before, probably all of them. But the first one is called a crazy quilt. And I don't think people are making these as much anymore, but they used to be very, very popular, often made entirely by hand. And you can see the hand embroidery around the pieces that have been added to the quilt. This is a very special and an heirloom that was made in the mid-1800s. And if you look carefully, you can see the artist has embroidered her initials in the quilt, and this has been passed down through a family for years and years. It is crazy, isn't it? I mean, all sizes, shapes, all kinds of fabrics, often silk and velvet used in those even. Then we have Amish quilts. And Amish quilts, that's not that one, but that's okay. Amish quilts, and they're a good example of one is in the back of the room hanging on the wall. The bright, bright colors. And that's typical of the Amish quilts. And they often include black. And you don't see that in the earlier quilts. The next one is an example of t-shirt quilts. And you've heard of these, where you might take your grandson's athletic t-shirts or maybe some other sport or whatever. This one happens to be Boy Scouts. And back the t-shirt with something to stabilize it, sew them together, just like we've talked about before, add the batting, add the backing, and have a great way to remember something. Along with that, there are many quilts called signature or signed quilts, and maybe a pastor's moving away, so people in the church all sign blocks, and then those blocks are put together and sent to the, passed on with him so that he can remember all of them. And there are lots of story quilts. And I have a slide from the art museum, and this is the quilt that Chris told you about that was made by Gloria Klutsky, and it hangs in the stairwell in the art museum. So as you're going up the stairs to go to the gallery to see all of the other quilts, you will see this one. And you need to look at it really closely. It has the paths that the people took as they relocated. And if you'll go to the next slide, you can see that better. And what you'll want to look for the Underground Railroad are these little green footprints, okay? And some of the other groups are in different colors, but the little green footprints are the Underground Railroad. And I think there's one more. And this shows you what you heard before, that the paths all went through Lafayette. So I know you'll want to take a good look at that. The last thing I'll talk about is that quilts are often made now in very contemporary designs and with hand fabrics, modern designs. Linda and Sandra Whidden made this quilt with watercolors, batik, applique, and embroidery to help celebrate the reopening of the DAR Constitution Hall in Washington, D.C. And when you start looking, you're going to see so many contemporary modern quilts, and they tell a story, just like other art tells a story. Thank you. Thanks to my assistants here. The quilt display in the back of the room and the exhibit at the Art Museum and the exhibit at TAF will give you the opportunity to see all of the many designs and many methods that we've talked about today. And we're changing the stage scene now because we're now going to focus on some very special quilts. And I'm happy to introduce to you Dr. Deanna McMillan, who is going to enlighten you on the role that quilts may have had in the Underground Railroad. Deanna?
My name is Missy Ann Washington. I was born here on the Washington plantation, and I expect this is where I'll die. I've been here almost 34 years of my life. And I was married to Willie George Washington. And George Washington, Master say, is a very potent name. Master say, George Washington is one of the fathers of this great nation. So we's proud to be Washingtons on this here plantation. Now, we's got 9 children. Well, I's got 9 children. I don't know which one's Willie's and which one's not. Willie's so good with tools. He's good with animals. So Willie gets to sleep with the animals and the tools. And maybe every month or so, I get to sleep with my husband and the animals and the tools. But every night, I get to stay in the big house with Miss Ann and Massa. Now, we got a secret. This is the secret. Willie gets to go where the animals go. He gets to ride in the carriages with Massa. And when he goes to the plantations where my children have been sold, he gets to go visit those children and check on them every once in a while. That's because the secret is that some of those children are Massa's children. Now, Miss Ann don't say much, but every time I have the children, then I get to feed their children. So their children, those little Washingtons that live in the big house where I get to sleep, I suckle their children. So we's real happy that we get to be in the big house. Now, I got another secret. Because I can keep the secrets, I get gifts. These are my gifts. I get scraps. Scraps of fabric from the big house. Scraps are like pieces of gold. Scraps, when they're children's, they make fine eating. Chitlins make fine eating. Scraps can also lead you to freedom. These scraps can lead you to freedom. Now, when you go to freedom, to live free, you have to be willing to die. Because if they catch you, they're not going to let you come back alive. So when you see these scraps like this, that represents an opportunity to live free. But to live free, you have to be willing to die. Let me show you what I do with these here scraps. This here is what they call a map. It leads to freedom. But it's our secret, don't tell nobody. When I put the scraps together, I hang them out the window, or I put them on the clothesline. So the other slaves know it's time to go. They get to choose whether they want to live free, but first they have to be willing to die. So when I hang this on the clothesline, that's a signal. And when you see that signal, you want to be ready. I want to be ready. I want to be ready. Lord, I want to be ready. Lord, ready to put on the long white robe. I would not be a sinner. I'll tell you the reason why. 'Cause if you come to call on me, Lord, I wouldn't be ready to die. I wanna be ready. I wanna be ready. Lord, I wanna be ready. Lord, ready to put on the long white robe. Be ready to put on the long white robe. Are you ready to put on the long white robe? You ready? Where's Missy? Little Missy. Where you at, little Missy? She's coming. I know she's coming. She's gonna be ready. Come sit here, child. Sit here, child. Let me show you how to get to freedom. This little Missy. Now, what I didn't tell you about me and Willie is we can never leave because we got the secrets. So little Missy here is gonna take the secrets and lead them to freedom. Okay, little Missy, pay attention now. We counting on you. We're gonna start here with what Willie tells us is the way out of the plantation. We got a nickname for Willie. He deals with the tools. We call him Wrench. He's the monkey wrench. This here is where Willie starts. And this here is called the monkey wrench. If you look in the quilt books, that's what you'll see. And then the next place that you'll go, in each square, the spacing between the squares represents miles. And where you're going is about 415 miles. So you start here with the monkey wrench. And you gotta remember this, gal, now. You gotta remember this, because you can't write it down and you can't take it with you. If they find this, they'll know where it came from and we'll all be dead. The bear's claw. The bear's claw means when you leave the plantation, you run along the river where the bears walk, they hibernate, and they make little caves. So if you go along the river, just like Willie tells you to, you'll find the footprints of the bear. Follow those footprints because the river will wash out your scent. But if the dogs smell anything, they'll smell the bear and run the other way. So the bear's claw is the path along the river where there's food. You may find fish, you may eat shrubs, and you find little caves to sleep in at night. And then you're gonna see this symbol over the door of a log cabin. This here is the log cabin. This is where they have provisions. This is where you change your clothes. This is where you get direction on where you're gonna go. So then you get to the drunkard's path. It's a crisscross. It's going all over the place. You have to watch for the symbols and travel only at night. So take this off your head, child. And what we will do is we would braid the path. Can I touch your head? I'll never touch somebody's head without asking for it. Can I touch your head? So you braid the patterns. And even from Africa, you see all different designs, but this would be the roadway to freedom. So you had your head covered when you came in. I didn't have time to braid her head today, but Miss Ryan Burns, who owns the salon, braided her hair last night. How many hours did it take? Yeah, that's normal. We all had our hair braided growing up. But if you turn around so people can see, you turn the chair. I want people to see the top of your head. Don't go too close to the edge, I can't catch it. See the back of her head, turn to the side. So they would memorize the patterns. It might be symbolized by the drunkard's path right here. But the decoration is really blocks, block braids, blocks, squares, shows the different pathways that you would follow. But if our head's covered, you don't know that pathway is there. So a lot of times, you'll see in culture, African American culture, don't touch my head without my permission. Also, there was different things that they did to slaves on their head and through their head to make them have the ability to absorb like lard and stuff like that without killing them as babies, that soft spot in their head. So if you see any traditions, West Indies, West African, any tradition, South America is forbidden to touch people's head without their permission. Okay, and especially pet them on the head. You want to turn to the side now? So you can see the elaborate patterns. And then, this is the bow tie. The bow tie gown is where you're gonna go. It's gonna be a church. And the bow tie is a symbol of the formality of certain slaves. They were given certain privileges. Most slaves could not wear or have anything white, all the way from white clothing to vanilla ice cream. Couldn't have anything white. But if you were in a special position, you get these. These are white gloves. When you go to the church, they're gonna hide you under the floorboards. But when you show them these gloves, they're gonna know you special. When those slaves see these gloves, you're gonna dress up just like them. The men with bow ties and gloves, they look just like the service gloves. When they see these, they know that you're special and that you are going for freedom. And so you keep these. And when you show them these at the church, those slaves there will know to hide you and to give you the clothing that they wear. And so the ones who travel with the carriages will double up. They will dress the same because you wouldn't know the difference because they don't look as slave. So if you have a bow tie and you got white gloves, you must have done something special. So they will hide them in the back of the carriage or under the carriage while the master and his family was in service, and they would take the carriage and they would move them to the next spot. So if you had the bow ties and you had the white gloves. And if you go into Baptist church these days, you'll see when it's time to serve communion, they got the white gloves and the posture. They came back from the years of slavery. I don't know about the white churches, but if you go in a black church and you on Communion Sunday, you'll see the same white gloves. Then the wagon wheel represents the carriages. This is where you don't have to walk the whole distance, but they're going to bring you to the next step. This is the last step of where the people who are part of the Underground Railroad from where you left will bring you to the crossroads. When they bring you to the crossroads, they turn you over to the conductor. So for those of us who are on the plantations where you originally started, we would have no idea what comes next, those next steps to freedom. But once you give up those gloves and you get to this point, you're on the way, your path, your next stop will be where you've crossed the freedom line. So before I send you, girl, on your way, cover your head up now. We don't want nobody to know. I got something else to give you, another gift made from scraps. Hold on. Everything in your hand. Another secret. Just touch those gloves. Okay, you gotta hide these now. They're made from scraps. This is gonna save your life. Scraps are like gold. They're made from scraps of cornmeal. You know what they're called? Hush puppies. You know what they're for? To hush the puppies. Don't let this touch your clothes. This has my scent on it. You want to wash your hands after you put these in a safe place. So if the dogs come barking behind you, you give them the hush puppies. But you gotta leave the paper because it smells like me. And it'll have the dogs come back to the plantation. So be careful, girl. Take these with you. And when you get the symbol, that's when you know it's time to go. So steal away. Steal away. Steal away. Steal away to Jesus' home. Steal away. Steal away home. I don't have long to stay here. Steal away, steal away, steal away to Jesus' home. Steal away home. I ain't got long to stay here. My Lord, He calls me. He calls me like the thunder. The trumpet sounds deep in my soul. I ain't got long to stay here, no. I ain't got long to stay, oh no.
ain't got long to stay here. Now let me tell you, they have at the crossroads, the conductors. They've done this many times. When you meet up with the conductor, either you make it to freedom or you get killed. But that conductor will bring you across the water. Usually water or railroad tracks separate between the slave states and the freedom line. You have them in Detroit, you have them in Cleveland, especially coming from the deep South and like Missouri, Mississippi, and the Midwest. But the goal is to get to the North Star. Once you get to the North Star, you're where freedom is. Now, this is a map. I'm embarrassed to admit in front of all these quilters, we started off with scraps of fabric and some glue. But there are some stitches in here. But what I want you to know is that this is right to left, but it's actually the opposite of what it would really be if you were leaving the South. What it would really be. Song, sister. You left Georgia and you were going north, right? You left Georgia like I did the other day. Georgia, Tennessee, Kentucky, and then you cross the line. Sometimes Indiana, but not always, because Indiana had Confederate and Union troops. You cross the line, so you really, this would be the direction that you would go. North and west, and ultimately, you would come to freedom at the North Star. So that is the depiction of one way that they follow the pathway to freedom. And at the crossroads, the nickname for the person who led you to freedom, the conductor, anybody know? The nickname? Moses. Harriet Tubman, her nickname was Moses. So when you get to the point at the crossroads where you're looking for your connection, you often will go with places that were populated with people. It may or may not be the person that you want. So what you would do is you hum or sing, Go Down Moses. James? Go down, Moses, way down in Egypt land, tell old Pharaoh to let my people go. Go down, Moses, way down in Egypt land, tell old Pharaoh to let my people go. Go down, Moses, way down in Egypt land, tell old Pharaoh, tell old Pharaoh, tell old Pharaoh to let my people go.
A lot has been said, but we are very honored to be here today. I was honored to have an opportunity to bring some students from Purdue University and my choir there, Black Voices of Inspiration. Our first piece, Wade in the Water, talked about the waterways that were used in nature. We learned recently that they were not only just to release the scent, but also in the marshes where the crocodiles and alligators and the snakes were. Oftentimes, the people chasing them would follow them in because they knew that would lead to a certain death. The last song is about following the drinking gourd. The Little Dipper has the North Star at his head, and the Big Dipper points to that. The two furthest stars point to that. So that was often used as a directional marker to lead them in the correct direction as they travel the waterways. This song is pretty self-explanatory, as you would hear as we sing through these verses, that the directions are very clear as to what they're instructed to do. So I'm going to play it just one more time. Follow the drinking gourd. Follow the drinking gourd. For the old man is awaiting for to carry you to freedom if you follow the drinking gourd. Follow the drinking gourd. Follow the drinking gourd. For the old man is awaiting for to carry you to freedom if you follow the drinking gourd. When the sun comes back and the first whale calls, follow the drinking gourd. For the old man is awaiting for to carry you to freedom if you follow the drinking gourd. Follow the drinking gourd. Follow the drinking gourd. For the old man is awaiting for to carry you to freedom if you follow the drinking gourd. The river bank makes a very good road. The dead trees will show you the way. Left foot, back foot, traveling on. Follow the drinking gourd. Follow the drinking gourd. Follow the drinking gourd. For the old man is awaiting for to carry you to freedom if you follow the drinking gourd. The river ends between two hills. Follow the drinking gourd. There's another river on the other side. Follow the drinking gourd. Follow the drinking gourd. Follow the drinking gourd. For the old man is awaiting for to carry you to freedom if you follow the drinking gourd. When the great big river meets the little river, follow the drinking gourd. For the old man is awaiting for to carry you to freedom if you follow the drinking gourd. Follow the drinking gourd. Follow the drinking gourd. For the old man is awaiting for to carry you to freedom if you follow the drinking gourd.
We were going to have our full ensemble for our last song, and it is a participation song, right? Absolutely. So you might have a little instruction.
So I have a quote. And this is in honor of everyone. This includes everyone, all ages, ethnicities, in honor of those of us who honor human dignity and the human spirit. I have a quote from Moses, Harriet Tubman. It may be familiar to you. And this is in regards to anything that you stand for, the freedom and justice, people in your family, your friends, and also standing for our greater Lafayette community. If you hear the dogs barking, keep going. If you see the torches in the woods, keep going. If they're shouting after you, keep going. Don't ever stop. Keep going. If you want a taste of freedom, keep going. Harriet Tubman. Mine eyes have seen the glory of the coming of the Lord. He is trampling out the vintage where the grapes of wrath are stored. He has loosed the fateful lighting of this terrible swift sword. His truth is marching on. Join us. Glory, glory, hallelujah. Glory, glory, hallelujah. Glory, glory, hallelujah. His truth is marching on.
I have seen him in the watchfires of 100 circling camps. They have builded him an altar in the evening dews and damps. I can read his righteous sentence by the dim and glaring lamps. His days marching on. Glory, glory, hallelujah. Glory, glory, hallelujah. Glory, glory, hallelujah. His truth is marching on. In the beauty of the lilies, Christ was born across the sea, with a glory in his bosom that transfigures you and me. As he died to make men whole, let us live to make men free. While God is marching on. Glory, glory, hallelujah. Glory, glory, hallelujah. Glory, glory, hallelujah.
let's give another huge round of applause for all of our performers. And the choir does have another performance this afternoon, so give them a round of applause for that. I will need just a few minutes to get back to the museum, so when we're done, if you want to take a look at all of the things around and just take your time if you're coming to the museum, that would be excellent. But I do just want to close out with this. 200 years, I know that we've come so far, but we still have a long, long way to go. And while our Black community has gained ground, it is still not enough. It is still the community with the least equity or the least money coming back to it for every dollar spent. When you add on the forced concentration of our Latino community, the treatment of our LGBTQIA2S+ community, our Native American community, Asian community, and basically anyone that doesn't look like me, it paints a bleak picture. There's a song that I like, and I'll quote the artist a couple times in this short statement. But it has a quote from Dr. Cornel West, and he says, "I think you know deep down in your soul that something just ain't right. You don't want to be just well adjusted to injustice and well adapted to indifference. You want to be a person with integrity who leaves a mark on the world. People can say when you go that you left the world just a little better than you found it. I understand. I want to be like that too. If you are from one of those communities that I mentioned, you are not expected to be at the front of my privilege. Instead, it is time for people who look like me to be accountable for the rest of our society. No one is worth 3/5 of a person. No child or person deserves to be ripped from their family simply for existing. But until we are moved into action, we will continue to look back and ask, what could we have done? If you aren't actively doing it right now, then you know the answer. Everything that the passenger does, the driver experiences too. So if humanity is one, then we all get burned when it's hell that we're traveling through. We will gain new ground. We will spread new light in the difficulty. I'd like to finish with this today. If you've heard me talk and you thought it was a long time, it felt like an eternity for me. And right now, it's at 9 minutes and 29 seconds. It truly is an eternity. We're not free unless we're all free. And to live free, you shouldn't have to be willing to die. There's no me and there's no you, it's just us. Thank you to everyone who participated in this program today. Thank you all. And I hope to see you all back at the museum. Thank you so much.